Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins at night, somewhere in Japan. In a building, there are various rooms in which various sexual acts are being carried out. Amidst all this, a little boy walks in a corridor. A woman passes by, asking him what he's been up to. The kid answers her that he's been learning a valuable trade. She leaves and the kid settles outside a room, pulling out a comic from his bag. A man then walks out, and they seem to know each other. He makes fun of his comic, taunting him that he wants to be a hero. The kid walks inside to see his mother getting dressed, who works as a prostitute to get by. She gives him an action figure of his favorite comic book hero, Dark, and he thanks her. Later, the kid hears his mother in distress. He grabs a hammer and rushes out to see a man beating his mom. He hits the man, who easily overpowers the kid. Just as he's about to hit, his mother picks up the hammer to hit him. She succeeds, but the man turns around to stab her and falls. We then shift to many years later. The boy has now grown up to be a man and is getting released from prison. He walks out to see a man waiting for him. Lafik is the one who got him an early release, but Dark, as the boy now calls himself, doesn't stop to listen to the man. The man keeps insisting that someone called Koga Kai has taken his daughter and he wants Dark's help, but he gets onto a bus. Lafik follows the bus and badgers him again when Dark walks out. He says he won't stop bugging him. Dark finally stops and asks him what Lafik expects him to do, and he replies that he can do what he himself can't and shows him his prosthetic leg. But Dark still doesn't get on board. He goes on ahead to bust the asses of some people who are selling drugs in an alley, showing us that he does good. He does take the drugs with him though and gets an apartment on rent. There, as he's smoking, he hears someone outside and meets his neighbor, an outspoken woman named Ivy. He introduces himself as Jake but tells her that he is known as Dark. When he returns to his apartment after helping her with her fallen groceries, an envelope waits for him on his doorstep. He opens it to see pictures of Lafik's kidnapped daughter and a video as well. Dark recalls how his mother got abused and tortured and decides to drain the drugs he obtained. Later, while he's having dinner, Lafik joins him and starts telling him about his daughter. He then says that Dark should get revenge for his mother because the same man who had his mother killed is the one who is behind Lafik's daughter's kidnapping, Tashi Kageyama. We see a flashback when after being stabbed, Dark's mother took his hand and ran out of the building, with Kageyama's men chasing after them. She hit her son, while the men took her and began to beat her. The leader of the Yakuza gang, Tashi's father, then stepped out of a car and slit her throat. After hearing all this, Dark finally agrees. Lafik takes him to a place where they observe Tashi Kageyama's son, Shigeru, meeting up with a motorcycle gang. But things go south for him, and that is when Dark steps in to kill the men after Shigeru. Shigeru is so grateful that he invites Dark to have dinner and there proposes that he become a member of the Yakuza. Dark accepts, and Shigeru tells him not to worry about the payment. One day, Dark is working out in his apartment when Ivy knocks at his door with the pizza. They sit down to eat and talk when Dark gets a call from Shigeru. Dark tells Ivy he has to go, and she leaves. He meets up with Shigeru, and together they attack a motorcycle gang that took some of Shigeru's men. A fight goes down, and Dark manages to kill the gang members one by one, emerging victorious. After that, Shigeru takes Dark to go meet his father, Tashi Kageyama, the head of the Yakuza. Dark does his best to keep calm when facing the man responsible for his mother's brutal murder and introduces himself by his real name, Jake Walters. Tashi is not impressed initially by Dark, but after some convincing by Shigeru, he agrees but cautions his son to not say anything important about the guy. Shigeru agrees and leaves. Tashi then tells one of his men, Kanji, to get him the dragons. Meanwhile, Shigeru has taken Dark to a strip club to celebrate. There, as Shigeru starts having fun, Dark walks around, observing. He runs into a woman, and the two seem to recognize each other. But just then, a group of men, who seem to be professional mercenaries, begin to attack Dark. Dark defends himself and puts up a good fight. The men do beat up Dark, but he still manages to beat them, angering Tashi and Kanji, who was observing the fight. Afterward, Shigeru tells him that he couldn't intervene because it was a test. Later in a private room, Tashi tells Dark that as a Gaijin, meaning foreigner, he will never truly be a part of the Yakuza. But Dark says that he is just interested in the money. Tashi slaps his son when he finds out that he hasn't paid Dark yet for the job he did and pays him. But takes away some of the money for the damages caused to his club. After Dark and Shigeru leave, Tashi asks Kanji to find out everything he can about Dark, suspecting him of hiding something. At home, the woman from the club shows up, saying that Shigeru sent her. He tries to turn her away, but she insists that if she doesn't stay, she will get into trouble. He invites her in and serves her the wine and pizza Ivy had brought over. They talk quietly, and we find out that Dark does know her. He asks Lisa what she is doing with these people, and she explains that she is paying back a debt that her family owes Kageyama. Before she leaves, Dark gives her some money, saying that his mother was also in the same trade and never had any money for herself, and tells her to buy something nice for herself. Lisa leaves with the pizza, crossing paths with Ivy in the hallway, who gets offended to see an unknown woman walking away with her pizza. The next day, Kanji meets up with Lafik and blackmails him with his daughter's video to make him get information on Dark. Meanwhile, Shigeru takes Dark with him to go harass the owners of a Chinese restaurant. Shigeru breaks things up and attacks one of the men when the mother begs him that the 888 triad had made them do it. Shigeru gives them a warning, saying that it will always be Kogakai's territory, and leaves with their money. They then head over to the 888 gang and kill the people there for revenge. At night, Lafik hands over some information on Dark to Kanji, but it does not include his childhood background. Meanwhile, Dark begins his revenge by showing up at Tashi's house and taking out all the men. He then shows up at Tashi's bedroom and shoots the man in the leg. He also reveals who he is and asks Tashi for information about Lafik's daughter Renee. But Tashi merely begins to insult Dark's dead mother. Enraged, Dark begins to beat up the guy and eventually kills him. Lisa walks into the room and sees everything. She asks Dark to knock her out as well so that no one suspects her of being behind the murder, and Dark obliges. He returns home, and soon, men arrive looking for him after getting the information from Lafik. Ivy arms herself with a shotgun, but Dark tells her they're his business associates. Dark is taken to their headquarters and interrogated by none other than Kanji himself, who beats him up pretty badly. Only Shigeru's arrival saves Dark, and Kanji lets him go. Later on, Shigeru and Kanji go to welcome Ginzo Kageyama, who is Shigeru's grandfather. They have a meeting with him later, where Ginzo tells Shigeru and Kanji to get to the bottom of who was behind Tashi's murder. Dark goes home, and Ivy demands an explanation, but when she sees that he's injured, she brings him into her apartment and looks after him. He tells her that he is sorry. Shigeru goes to meet Lafik and asks him who was behind his father's murder. Lafik points to Lee from 888, and while Shigeru doesn't believe him, he threatens him again with his daughter's life and leaves. He presents Lee's head to his grandfather, saying that Lee confessed to the murder before he died. Ginzo tells Shigeru he did good, but suspects the whole thing because he also suspects Dark. The next morning, Dark wakes up and tells Ivy that she's not safe by associating herself with him. Elsewhere, we see Tashi's tattooed skin being flayed and taken to Ginzo. He also receives information on Dark, revealing all his secrets. Shigeru gets a call, telling him the truth about Dark, and he gets shocked by the news of this betrayal. Lafik manages to get a hold of Dark and tells him that he's gotten to know that Renee is about to be killed at the port. Lafik himself rushes to the port and demands Kanji where his daughter is. Kanji tells him that he was warned about what would happen to his daughter if he ever lied to them. Lafik sees his daughter hanging to be killed. He tries to save her but is outnumbered. Thankfully, Dark arrives and kills everyone. He goes to save Renee, but it turns out that it is really Lisa. He tells Lisa to run away. Meanwhile, in a rage, Shigeru ends up at Ivy's apartment and starts beating her up for information on Dark. Again, Dark arrives to save her and fights Shigeru's men. But Shigeru manages to get hold of Ivy, holding a knife to her throat. He makes Dark kneel in front of him and threatens to kill her. Dark lets himself be caught, but Shigeru still kills Ivy. Dark is taken to see Ginzo at the Yakuza headquarters. Ginzo tells Dark that he knows who he is. He says he doesn't know how Dark was allowed to escape and live. He further angers him by saying that he doesn't remember the men he's killed, but remembers the women, as there's something special about them. He calls for Shigeru, saying that he might be ambitious and stupid, but avenging his father is his duty. Shigeru continues to beat Dark up in front of his grandfather. Ginzo orders Shigeru to kill Dark, and Shigeru takes him away. While being dragged out, Dark crosses paths with Renee, who is being taken in to see Ginzo. When in the car, Dark manages to kill everyone including Shigeru and gets out to go save Lafik's daughter. Ginzo gets a call, telling him about Dark's escape. He knows that he will come to rescue Renee. Dark storms the Yakuza headquarters, killing all the men Ginzo sends his way until he is able to make his way to Ginzo's office. There, he holds Renee hostage and forces Dark to stab himself if he wants Renee to live. Dark does as he says, and when Ginzo, satisfied at this, walks close to him, Dark stands up to attack and stabs Ginzo in the neck. He also falls down weak from bleeding, but Renee, who is a nurse, manages to save his life. The end.